G'day guys, in this video I'm bringing you the build for this, which is the second version of the Spar bar Pro, which has the ball bearings inside of there. Now in this version there are a number of upgrades, including this super stable platform made of PVC pipes and joints. Now make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell because I've got heaps more great builds coming up, including this dual punching bag system that will enable you to train on two different punching bags without having to pause. Okay, so let's get started, but before I start, I just want to say that all the details for this build and many of my other builds are on my website, fighterdiy.com. I'll also include a link in the description below directly to this project on my website. So go check it out. Now the top part of this build is actually identical to the last version, the last video that I made. So you can go and have a look at that for all the details of how to put it together. It's also included in the instructions on the website. So the whole project is there. The main difference with the top section from the last version is that I've separated the middle pipe, or the pipe that holds everything up, into two sections. So I'm using a top section onto which I have mounted the spinner, and that makes it easy to disassemble and assemble. It also allows me to have a short middle section if I wanted to extend the height, for example for someone much taller than me. Now for the benefit of those of you who haven't seen the last video, I'll just quickly go through the setup of the top section. So first of all, I've got a basketball at the top that's sitting on the rubber part of a plunger, and that simply screws onto the top, just like that. So the plunger handle's gone, and this goes on top of your galvanized steel pipe. The swivel is comprised of a cross joint, you can use a T-joint, and two PVC pipes, a short one and a longer one, that are locked in place using a pin lock system. So just a hole that's drilled all the way through the joint and the arm, and a pin locks it in place. For the main arm, for the padding on the main arm, I'm using two pull noodles that have been cut lengthwise and then strapped onto the PVC pipe using cable ties. For the swivel itself, I'm using a cross joint, but you can use a T-joint, and I've got two ball bearings that are inserted inside of the joint like this. The ball bearings, I'll put the dimensions on the website project page, but essentially they look like this, and I've had to put a bit of tape on the outside of the ball bearing to ensure that it's a nice snug fit. I've also had to put some tape on the 1/2-inch galvanized pipe to ensure a snug fit there as well. So that sits in there nice and snug and will rotate beautifully. The biggest challenge with this system is to stop this wobble. When you're punching it, that's going to create this wobble, and that's going to stop the rotation or hamper the rotation of your spar bar. To ensure that we have a stable mast or pole, we're going to create this brace system. I'll take you through that step by step. For the brace system, I'm using 40-inch grey pipes. And the reason I'm using these pipes, they're the only ones that have these joints, the wide joints. And you're going to need 4 of these wide joints. In terms of the lengths, number of arms, you're going to need 2 of them. One's roughly 18 inches, the other ones are roughly 20, 25 inches, and they'll need to be cut to length. The other thing you need is 3 or 4 sections of connecting bits of pipe like this. They're just basically there to connect things like the caps. So you'll need 2 of these caps, and that will connect to there, and that will sit on your MDF board. I'll show you how, and that will form part of one of the brace arms. You'll also need a small section of pipe like that to connect 2 wide joints together. So one will sit atop the other one, just like that. So you will have one brace arm going that way and one brace arm going this way. Once you've got the 2 together like this, they'll go onto your pipe, but you'll see that they're quite loose on there. So to overcome that, you'll need a couple of reducers. So 2 reducers. First of all, a reducer that reduces down to a smaller size, and then another one to reduce even further down, and the same sort of reduces at the bottom end. So now the diameter is roughly the same as the pipe, so it fits nicely. One more thing you might need to do is just put a little bit of tape around the pipe at the point where this is going to sit once you work that out. Now when you're making this thing, make sure you don't glue anything together just yet. You can glue everything at the end once you know everything fits together nicely. To make the first arm, I'm using a cap that I've screwed into the MDF board in the middle. In my case, I've got a dual board, so I've got it on the far sort of edge in the middle there. If you're using just this much board for a single punching bag or single spar bar, you'll put it in the far corner here. So I've screwed that in, that's in place, ready for the supporting arm to be attached. Next, I've got this section of pipe that I'm going to connect the Y joint to the cap. So that goes in there. So nice and firm, that's sitting in there. Next, I'm going to use one of my pipes, one of my sections of pipes, and I'm going to plug that in there, like that. And then I'm going to work out where I've got to cut it in order for it to fit into the top part, the top Y joint in this section here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So once I've marked it and I cut it off, that should fit in there. Okay, so that's one arm done. So that's one supporting arm, it's ready. Now for your second arm, you've got to work in reverse. You've got to work out, put your Y section with the cap on in place, insert your length of pipe, and then position it next to other Y section and work out the length of the arm and also where the cap should be screwed into. Now if you put it too far, the cap will end up on an angle. If you put it too close, the cap will end up on an angle. So there's really only one spot where the cap will perfectly sit flush on the MDF board, and that's the place. Mark it off with a pencil and also mark off how much of the pipe you're going to need for this section. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've cut the pipe and I'm going to plug that into the main arm, and I'm just going to rotate it around to position it where I want it, to the side of the board like that, and that sits quite flush. So I'm going to mark that with a pencil, and that's where I'm going to screw in the cap, and then that's ready to go. So I've screwed the cap in place and I've got my two arms. They're not joint yet. I'm going to join them both at the same time. So now I can join this section, and you've got to do it simultaneously to the two arms and just push it down like that. So that's nice and firm in there. That's nice and firm in place. Now one more thing I would recommend is using hose clamps at the bottom on the metal pipe and also at the top. So make sure that this section doesn't move up and down on the pipe. Okay, so I've glued each of these components, or each of these sections. All the bits, all the components within each section have been glued together. So now I will assemble it. I haven't glued these two parts together, but I've glued the reducers on the top and the bottom. So that's ready to go. The next thing is I'm going to glue this part here. So that connecting bit of pipe, I'm going to apply glue to it, and I'm going to connect these two and glue them together. But I need to do that in place. So I'm going to assemble it by placing all of my pipes in position. Okay, and now before I connect them all, I'm going to apply glue to that, and then I will connect them. Alright, so I've just applied the glue to the bottom section with the connecting bit of pipe there. So I'll put that bottom section into place nice and firm into this supporting arm, and then the top section ready to be glued in. So it's got glue on it. So as I go down, I need to make sure I click all my pipes together, because once the glue is set, that needs to be in the correct place. So now I'm just going to force it all the way down at the right angle. Okay, and that's it. You need to allow the glue to set for 24 hours before you start disassembling it or working with it, but essentially that's it. Well, there you go, the complete pro version of the DIY Spar bar with ball bearings and a fully stabilized platform that stops it from wobbling. Now you'll be able to work out properly. Now this is a very complex build, so I recommend you refer to the instructions on my website, for which I will include a link in the description. Now make sure you subscribe and you turn on the bell, because I've got more stuff coming up, more upgrades and more DIY projects, including the dual platform that I'll show you next week. So I'll catch you guys then.